babies and everything.
That was the only one, right, Julie? That one. Good evening. It is 7 o'clock. We do have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First items on the agenda is the invocation given by Councilman Thornhill, and then the pledge to both the American and Texas flags by Mayor Pro Tem Durham.
If you would, bow your heads for a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight with our heads bowed and our hearts open and pray to give thanks for the many blessings that you've given us and bestowed upon us that we so often take granted for. We give thanks to our friends and our family and give thanks for our health. We ask that you watch over those people who are not as fortunate and that you answer their prayers. We ask that tonight that when we make our decisions for the city that we think about our decisions and that they affect the entire city and that they be pleasing in your sight. We ask that you protect those who protect us, either here at home or overseas, and that you bring them home safely. We ask this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Next thing on the agenda, I think all of you know, if you don't, you're going to learn a little bit about it, but we just had our annual Western Days Festival, which was a huge success, the largest crowd we've ever had before. And right now, I believe we got a little video for you.
Out here at Louisville. The festival's always fun.
Have you spent a lot of money at Western Days?
Yes.
You like the food out here?
Awesome.
You like the beer?
Great.
Okay.
Have fun.
Now I'm gonna tell you something. I want you to listen tight. Mosey on down to Western Days. Have a real good time. Keep your eye on LVTV for more information. And that's about the size of it.
Sonia, the Black Widow Thomas. You watch LVTV.
I'm Tim Eater X Janice, and you're watching LVTV.
Are you having fun yet? Are you having fun yet? All right. We've got a couple of awards and presentations we want to make first. We get the next thing on the agenda. And first, I'd like to ask Lorenzo Erickson, who is with Community Chiropractic, if you would come down, sir. You know, this year we had a special award, and it was our Spirit of the Old West Award. This is our first annual award, I believe it is. Isn't it right, staff? First annual award. And we're going to do this every year. You know, we're trying to get more and more of our businesses in the community to participate in our Western Week event and making it all, instead of just a Western weekend, make it a week-long event. And Community Chiropractic did a wonderful job. Every time you went in their building, and I believe, I'll let you tell all the stuff you did, but you sent out stuff and everything. So first off, when I give you this, get some pictures, and I'll let you address the crowd. How's that? All right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just glad it's not a spray painted cow pie. That's we set up the front desk window. We put a saloon style wooden doors in, swinging doors in. So every time you come in, you had to go through the doors. We sent our wanted poster out, and it told everybody to come look for Crooked Spine Pete during the Western days at our booth we had. And it also invited everybody all the patients to come in and for a community Chiro Cantina Day. We had free root beers for all the patients, and then we made sure to include tickets to Western Days and all of it, which I thought was a great idea. We had people who come in who thought we spent $20 on every ticket, so thank you for that. But it was a great fun. I got my family and my kids here, and you can see that some of the spirit there is from them. But thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you. You know, I know sometimes you're seeing a lot of negative news in the press and stuff about the economy and hard times, but seems like here in Louisville we're continuing to grow. We're continuing to have new businesses come in, and when they do, they come in and become a part of the community. We're really proud to have these new businesses come in and be part of our community here. Next award I want to give away is Chief, if you would. We had Chief Kerbo, our police chief, come up, and we could also have Diana Fairchild, if you wouldn't mind coming up. Diana was given a special award this past Thursday evening at our Heroes of Denton County. And so I'm going to let Chief Kerbo tell you a little bit about the award that she was given and what the award stands for as well.
Thank you, Mayor. The Heroes of Denton County is a 501c3 nonprofit, and they raise money to help benefit firefighters and law enforcement officers in Denton County if they suffer serious bodily injury or lose their life without a duty. Well, Chief Lefty and I serve on the executive board of directors. And at this year's banquet, we honored Diana with the Detroit Monroe Award. It's a community service award named after a county board member who since passed away. But he had such a legacy in his property in Denton County of giving of himself and giving of his resources to various nonprofit projects. They felt it only appropriate that we name an award after him. It's not an award we give every year. We wait to hear from our board members, the individuals, especially individuals that are worthy of something to be done before the room. And that's where Diana is.
And I want to tell you a little bit about Diana and why she received the award. And this was all of Denton County. So, I mean, it was every city in Denton County was there, had people that they had nominated for Fire Hero of the Year, Police Hero of the Year, Telecommunications Specialist of the Year, all the different heroes. And we were fortunate, and I thought and blessed, to have a team member that works with us here in our community, and Diana, that was given this award. As Chief said, it's not given away every year. So we're very proud and pleased to have you with us, Diana. And I'll tell you a little bit why she was recognized for this award. On May 13, 2009, the police department received a report of an elderly female that needed assistance. Jeannie Leffler, a Louisville resident of more than 50 years, was housebound and could no longer take care of her basic needs. Diana Fairchild, a Louisville dispatcher for 12 and a half years, and her husband adopted Miss Leffler, and over the past year have worked daily to improve her home, her health, and her happiness. As a result of a 911 call, Diana found an opportunity to make a difference in another person's life. Her generosity has brought happiness and comfort to another. She has shown how much an individual can do for her community by volunteering time and kindness. For that reason, Diana Fairchild received the Troy H. LeGrone Community Service Award at the 9th Annual Heroes of Denton County Awards and Recognition Banquet. And I want to say congratulations. Thank you very much, Zach, because I agree. He absolutely deserves that. We don't do that as often as we do. It seems like we hear it more often than not here in Louisville than we do in some other cities. I also want to present something to her that weren't able to give to her Thursday night. And this is a proclamation from Senator Jane Nelson. In the name and by the authority of the Senate of the State of Texas, extending most sincere congratulations, I proudly present this certificate to Diana Fairchild in honor of receiving the 2010 Troy LeGrone Award for Community Service. In the testimony whereof, I have hereunto signed my name and caused the seal of the state to be affixed at Austin, Texas, in the Senate chamber on this 27th day of September 2010. Signed, Senator Jane Nelson. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, consideration of an ordinance for a zone change from general business and light industrial to light industrial on a 1.84 acre tract located on the south side of Business State Highway 121, just east of Main Street, further identified as tract 67 and 68 of the A.G. King survey. Abstract 698 as requested by Bill and Charlie Waite, the property owners. The property is located on the southeast side of Business State Highway 121 and Main Street. The majority of the property is currently zoned general business, which allows a variety of uses from office, retail, and service uses. Light industrial zoning allows all uses in general business and some additional uses such as campus-style light manufacturing uses and industrial uses. One of the buildings on these tracts was rezoned from general business to light industrial in 2008. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 7-0 in favor of the zone change request at their September 7, 2010 meeting. Recommendation of staff is that the City Council approve the proposed ordinance as set forth in the above caption. I do have a card here filled out by Mr. Charlie Waite. He does not wish to speak, but he is here in support of this option, of this item. Councilman Durham?
Is it proper to close public hearing?
Yes, sir.
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilman Durham to close the public hearing, a second by Councilman Watts. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Councilman Durham?
Mayor, move to approve.
We have a motion to approve the item by Councilman Durham, a second by Councilman Guerrero. Councilor?
This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Louisville, Texas, that amends the zoning ordinance of the City of Louisville, Texas, granting zoning changes on the 1.84 acres located over several tracts of land fully and completely described in the attached Exhibit A, ordering a change in the use of said property from general business and light industrial district zoning to light industrial district zoning, correcting the official zoning map, preserving all other portions of the zoning ordinance, providing a clause relating to severability, determining that the public interest and general welfare demand a zoning change and amendment therein made, providing a penalty, and declaring an emergency.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is our Visitor Citizens Forum. At this time, any person with business before the council not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the council. No formal action can be taken on these items at this meeting. I do have 2 cards filled out here. Mr. Gary Henderson, and was Ronnie Jr. wanting to come up at the same time or with you? All right.
Yeah, well, if it's okay, we'll have our group come up together.
You bet. Come on ahead.
Well, it's our pleasure to be here tonight. I'm Gary Henderson, CEO of Communities and Schools of North Texas, and it's been 10 years since Central Elementary has been a school that earned the rating of recognized. 10 years, and you, as a council, City of Louisville as a city, have generously supported part of the funding that allows Communities and Schools of North Texas to serve the students there. We have with us today Louisville ISD School Board President Carol Kyer, Principal of Central Elementary Raul Pena. We have Bethany Lewis, our Program Manager at Central Elementary, and because I'm just really not a comfortable public speaker, they elected Ronnie to speak to you. Ronnie is the President of the Student Council at Central Elementary. I think you'll find him quite qualified.
Well, Mike. Ronnie, you want to give us your full name, sir?
My name is Ronnie Gentry. My name is Ronnie Gentry, and I am a 5th grade student at Central Elementary. Communities and Schools has been a positive experience for me. This program has helped me become a great leader, and I believe that one day I will become the President of the United States. So thank you for supporting CIS at Central Elementary.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate that.
And ladies, I believe you have thank you notes to give to the mayor, and the mayor can share those with the councilmen. Go ahead and approach.
Wasn't this special? Wow, what a surprise. What a treat. Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you very much, ladies. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
And just for the record, Communities and Schools congratulates Louisville ISD and Central Elementary on earning the rating of recognized. We're very proud of them. Thank you.
Yes, we are. Thank you very much. Once again, just another example of what a wonderful community we have here in Louisville and how people really go above and beyond to work together and make sure that this is a community that everyone can enjoy and live and work in. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All of the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory by the council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests. For a citizen to request removal of an item, a speaker card must be filled out and submitted to the city secretary. I did not have any cards filled out by citizens, but Councilman Watts did ask that we pull item 3. So, Councilman Guerrero?
Move to approve the consent agenda,
With the exception of?
with the exception of item number 3. Yes, sir.
Second. We have a motion by Councilman Guerrero to approve consent agenda with the exception of item 3, a second by Councilman Watts. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, Approval of a bid award for the purchase and installation of video image vehicle detection systems on Round Grove Road, FM 3040, to Durable Specialties, Inc., Grand Prairie, Texas, in the amount of $198,400. Approval of a total budget of $204,352, which includes a $5,952 for contingencies and authorization for the city manager to execute the contract. A total of 33 bid invitations were downloaded from bidsync.com. 5 bids were received and opened July 29, 2010. The video image vehicle detection system will involve 10 traffic signals on Round Grove Road. Funding is available in the ARRA-EECBG grant capital project. This federal grant was awarded by the Department of Energy under the Economic Stimulus Plan as part of the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act through an energy efficient and conservation block grant. Recommendation of staff is that the council approve the bid award as set forth in the caption above. Councilman Watts?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to pull this out just by way of explanation. When the staff brought this grant proposal up to approve the application for the grant, I voted against applying for the grant simply because it was a part of the $800 billion stimulus bill that's worked so well. And I didn't want to give the impression I was voting for something now that I voted against before. I was against applying for the grant, but we did. I'm not here to re-argue that, but the grant was received, and this is just awarding the bid to the contractor who got the bid. So the folks at Durable Specialties, Inc. in Grand Prairie can thank their great-great-grandchildren for that $200,000. So anyway, I'm okay with awarding the grant here because that's part of the process. Just wanted to explain that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you like to?
I'll move to approve item 3.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilman Watts to approve.
Second.
A second by Councilman Guerrero. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11, consideration of a variance to the Louisville City Code, Section 6-54, when an engineering site plan is required for a proposed restaurant to be located at 1133 South Stemmons Freeway, as requested by Bill Davidson, First Commercial Realty, the property owner. And staff, can you help me with the name of this? Patscuro?
A restaurant.
Huh? A restaurant.
Bill.
Bill, how do you pronounce that? For you, Bill. I had a question. How do you pronounce it? Huh? Pazuka. Restaurant is proposing to occupy an existing building which is platted separately as Lot 2, Block A of the Lakeland Plaza addition. The building was originally built as a Tia's restaurant in 1988. To date, the building has been vacant for numerous years. The city code requires properties that are vacant for a period of 12 months or more to have a current engineering site plan on file when future development occurs. Due to the fact this building is currently shown to be in the TxDOT's right-of-way for I-35 expansion plans, staff recommends approval of this variance. Recommendation is that the council approve the request or variance as set forth in the caption above. And I did have one card here filled out, and that is by Bill Davidson. He is here in support and available to answer any questions if anyone has any questions of him. Councilman Thornhill.
Thank you, Mayor. If anybody has any comments, I'll let them make it, but I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion to approve by Councilman Thornhill, second by Councilman Guerrero. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You remember I said earlier in the beginning of the meeting how we just seemed here in Louisville through these economic times seem to be continuing to actually increase our city here in businesses and in population, and it's really good to see. We've had several businesses and some of our older shopping centers which are remodeling now during these times, and we're certainly glad to see that, and we're glad to have the new businesses coming into town. Item 12 is consideration of revised program guidelines for the City of Louisville's first-time homebuyer assistance program. Revisions to the first-time homebuyer assistance program are being recommended. Assistance levels, eligibility criteria, and underwriting limits are included, as well as several clarifications and administrative items. Staff held a meeting with local real estate and mortgage professionals to seek their input on revisions being considered. A policy matrix offering options was presented to the CDBG Advisory Committee for discussion. At their September 21st, 2010 meeting, the CDBG Advisory Committee voted to recommend these final revisions to City Council for consideration. Recommendations is the Council approve the revised program guidelines for the city's first-time homebuyer assistance program. Councilman Durham?
If nobody has anything else, I move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Durham to approve, a second by Councilman Watts. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 13. It's consideration of an ordinance amending Chapter 7, Article 18, Oil and Gas Drilling and Production of the Louisville City Code by increasing the minimum setbacks, changing paint color requirements of equipment, requiring an emission control reduction plan, requiring a processed water disposal plan, and requiring a commercial driveway onto a gas site. In August of 2010, staff was tasked with reviewing the oil and gas ordinance by researching the various provisions and comparing them to neighboring jurisdictions and gathering input from various stakeholders. This process is continuing. However, interim recommended modifications are as follow. 1, increasing the minimum setback distance from a well site to a protected use or freshwater well from 200 feet to 300 feet. 2, changing the color of paint from permanent equipment from black or dark green to light tan or other color as approved/required by other state regulatory agencies. 3, adding a requirement to submit an emission control reduction plan. 4, adding a requirement to submit a processed water disposal plan. 5, requiring a driveway from a public road onto the pad site that complies with the requirements for a commercial driveway and extending the driveway onto the pad site by a minimum of 40 feet. The recommendation of staff is that the council approve the ordinance as set forth in the above caption. I believe we're going to have Tim come up, and our Fire Marshal Tim come up and do a presentation on this.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I wanted to talk to you about the ordinance that's before you, the proposed changes. But before we get into that, I thought it might be helpful just to give you an update on the overall gas and what's going on in our city. Let's see if I can figure out how to use this thing. We have a number of sites that are in process or have been completed already. The first site we have is the Dewey Well site out at the landfill off of 121. That one was completed last year. It's just sitting there. It's capped off. There's no pipeline to it, but it's kind of just sitting there on its own right now. The next site we have is the Prologis site. As you can see on here, it's located off McGee Road, down by the railroad tracks, kind of across from the cemetery out there. That permit process, or their permit is in process. We're just about wrapped up with that and should be bringing it to a public hearing here pretty quick to you. Right now, that is proposed for just one well. There may be more coming, but right now it's just one well at that site. Some of the others we have going on out there right now, and again, these are all in process. Nothing has been approved. We have the Chen site, which is located off 3040, right adjacent to the Crest Manor Apartments. That one is currently, they have 6 wells under proposal on that site. The next one would be the Cobb site, which is down off of Spinks Road. Excuse me. Cobb right now has a total of 12 wells asking for permits on that site. We have the Ace site down here off the very end of Duncan Road. That one's 8 wells, and then the Duncan site right here adjacent to the Chesapeake's existing compressor facility. That's in there for 1. And then finally, We just received on Friday the first submittal for the Ingram site, and that's located off South Valley Parkway right across from our park at Corporate. Okay, so we have one well that's been drilled and complete. We have 28 others in process right now. So that's kind of the status of where we're at today.
Okay. Now, when you're saying that, what you mean, you say we have 28 others in process, if I understand you correct, you're saying that there's 28 of them that are under review by staff.
Correct.
And there has been no recommendation made to council on any of those wells those 28 wells at this time. Right. And then when they do, the council will address each one of those separately, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Well, back in August, staff was directed to kind of take a look at our ordinance and see what we can do or what needed to be tweaked and just, if anything. And in order to go about that, we had the idea of let's get a stakeholder group together. Let's see if we can bring, I hate to say sides, but interested parties together and see what's out there, see what we can do together and gain some consensus on it. And to that end, I think it's been a very successful group. They've worked well together. I'm very pleased with the win-win attitude, let's say, that these folks that have been at the table have exhibited. So we held our first meeting on September 2nd, and we had quite a few people there. We were really blessed or honored to have Tony Walker, who's the regional director of TCEQ. He was present at that meeting and provided a lot of insight into what TCEQ requirements are and kind of where they're going in the future with their rules and ordinances. We had 3 citizens, Steve Southwell, TJ Gilmore, and Mr. Neil Ferguson. Mr. Ferguson was representing the Louisville Neighbors for Responsible Urban Drilling on that group. And then we had some industry folks. We had Titan Operating, Chesapeake Energy, and William Production, and then various staff was present. That meeting went about 3.5 hours. I think we were all pretty tired at the end of it. But we made some good progress. We had some real good discussions, and we had some action items that came out of that. Mainly pertaining to the changes that are before you tonight. We wanted to get some feedback from industry. They wanted time to review some of the things that we were coming up with and see how it would affect them. So those action items were, first off, increasing the minimum setback, the absolute bare minimum setback to protected uses from our current 200-foot to 300-foot. Okay? The next item that they were going to look at was how we measure our setbacks. Currently, and I'll get more into this later, but currently we measure those setbacks from the center of the well bore to the protected use or the protected building. Okay? We will ask them to look at increasing the minimum setbacks on freshwater wells from 200 foot to 300 foot. We had a little item that was more of a question, I guess, was is there a setback between a water well and a septic system? And we found out there is, and it's anywhere from 50 to 150 feet. That's a TCEQ requirement. And then we also asked the industry to come up with what we call a boilerplate for this emission control or reduction plan. Currently, that plan is not a requirement of the ordinance or required of the permit, but we've been asking the industry to provide that to us to give us more information as we process it. So again, on September 2nd, those were our action items. They were going to review them and come back at the next meeting and report how they felt about them, or could those be workable on their sites that they're looking at. So we met again on September 30th. On those, they basically provided us the information on all of that. We had a lot of discussions, and we added a few items as staff that we felt was necessary to put into our ordinance, and that would be to require this water plan that we've talked about a little bit. We kind of need to know where they're getting their water, how are they getting it to the site, how are they using it, and then how are they getting it off the site, kind of a cradle-to-grave approach of water usage on the site. We also asked for this commercial driveway onto the site. It's not a requirement now. The specification comes right out of our general development ordinance for commercial driveways. We've asked one of the companies at the Prologis site, which is a Titan operating site, we asked them to put that in. The idea we had there was to try to minimize the dirt, debris, mud, and all from entering onto our roadway. So they went ahead and agreed to that, but now we wanted to put it in the ordinance, or we suggest to put it in the ordinance so that all the sites would have to comply with that. Okay? So we batted those around and chatted about them, got a lot more information, had some great discussion. Essentially, I wouldn't say we didn't take a vote, but I asked, where are we all at in it? And the industry, they did voice concerns over how we measure the setbacks. They had concern over that. They voiced that opinion, but we reiterated at the time on these 5 different items or 6 different items, however many they were, do we have consensus from around the room? And we heard yes. We heard yes. We again repeated it at the end of the meeting. Are we all on board with these recommended changes that we were going to bring forth to you? And again, I felt we had consensus on that. After that meeting, that night, this was last Thursday, I did receive an email from Chesapeake voicing concern over how we measure this setback, that they were no longer really in agreement with it, or were not going to support it, shall we say. And a number of other items, some of which we hadn't even talked about yet. And also Titan Operating contacted me the next day saying they've thought about it, and this was going to be how we measure the setback could potentially be a real impeding factor on their ability to develop a gas site. So since we didn't have consensus, staff, we went ahead and pulled that one item off of the proposal in front of you, and we're asking you to take a look at that. But I would like to explain a little bit more on how we measure this setback. Prepared a little document, or a little thing here. I don't know if you can see this or not. But currently, the minimum setbacks that we have are 200 foot to a protected use, and that's measured from the center of the well. We're proposing or asking you to vote on increasing that to 300 feet. So that gives you an idea. And that 300 foot is measured in all directions, just like the spokes of a wheel. But it's only measured from the well site, nothing else on the rest of the pad. And the proposal that we had, and we thought we had consensus on, was to change that a little bit and not only measure from the well, but any permanent equipment that could potentially pose a health or safety risk, such as a tank battery. And if you look at this drawing, it's somewhat typical of a pad site where you might have that well where we had before, but maybe on the far side of it, we have those tank batteries. And we were proposing to measure that 300-foot minimum, bare minimum setback from there. Essentially, that would potentially could increase the setbacks. If this distance here was, say, 100 foot, it'd really be 400 foot from what we have today. So that's what we were proposing, and we've pulled that off of the proposal in front of you. Now, the items you have in front of you tonight, I can just explain a little bit, again, just to reiterate, is increasing that minimum distance, that minimum setback distance from protected use and water wells from 200 foot to 300 foot. We still have in place that at 800 foot, if everything's greater than 800 foot from a protected use or the setback, that could be a staff approval. That's in our current ordinance. From the 500 to 800 foot would require a public hearing with a majority vote by the council, and then what will be 300 or could be 300 foot to 500 foot would require a supermajority of council approval plus 100% approval by the affected property owners in there. So we still have that, but we're asking to increase that from 2 to 300 foot setback. We're asking to change the paint color of permanent equipment from a dark color, black or dark green, to a light tan, thought being thermodynamics, thermal heating, that could cause gases to expand and potentially release. So they've suggested we use a light color on the tanks or on any permanent equipment that's on the site. We're asking to include a emission control and reduction plan. What is their plans? How are they going to propose to keep emissions, to zero or a minimum? How are they going to respond to any potential leaks? How are they going to monitor it? That whole thing. So we want to know what they're doing to ensure that there's the least amount of emissions possible coming from a site. The fourth item is that water plan, which I've kind of explained, that cradle-to-grave approach. Tell us what you're doing. Show us how that's all going to be done. And then lastly, that commercial driveway requirement. And on that, too, it's important to know that it's not just the wide driveway, but we want that concrete apron to extend 40 feet onto the site, so we can hopefully, again, minimize any dirt and debris that'll get on our roadways. So that's been our process up to the date, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Have any questions of staff this time, council?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Basically, the item that you were talking about, pulling the 300, the example that you had was the 300 feet to any item on there. Those tanks on there, those could be high-pressure tanks, correct? The tank batteries? I mean, being gas, they could be compressed and be in a liquid form in a compressed fashion in those tank batteries. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the tank batteries, separators, things like that could produce an emission.
I heard you, but to me it seems to be that could be, it seems logical to have, you're going to be 300 feet from the wellhead, you should also be 300 feet from one of those tank batteries, so, I'm thinking about levees and possible fire or something like that. The distance, one more time, why did we pull that off? Or why did you recommend?
Well, industry felt that could become onerous on their ability to get it could become onerous or difficult for them to get the approval. One of the companies I had discussions with on this item, Titan, had explained to me that they could meet the setback. That probably wouldn't sink the ship for them. The real inhibiting thing was that would put them in that 300 to 500 foot range that requires the supermajority of council approval and 100% of the property owner's approval. So they felt getting that could be very difficult, and they weren't so much set against the setback itself of 300 feet from the tanks, but the process that could potentially invoke.
The main reason we pulled it from consideration on this item was to enable the process to continue on that item if, in fact, there was a misunderstanding or a miscommunication or there was a lack of understanding as to exactly how it was going to be applied. At the meeting itself on the 30th, we thought there was an understanding. Clearly, at least with two of the participants later on, they expressed concerns. And so with that lack of consensus that appeared the following day, we felt it was better to take that off of the ordinance. Of course, you have the option of putting it right back on there.
But it's not off the table completely.
No, it's not. In fact, we were going to go back, if it's not passed tonight, if you don't add it back in, it'll be probably the single major point of contention at the next meeting, I would assume, until we can come up with some sort of happy medium or at least an understanding of where everyone's position is. I think Tim has represented the drillers' concerns accurately. I think they're concerned about having to get additional property owner permission and subjecting any of the well sites to the 3 or the 4/5 majority just because of a tank battery or some other piece of permanent equipment, as opposed to just the well bore. But again, since we didn't have the consensus we thought we did, we took it off.
Okay. I had another question to go with that, and it just left me. We are at the average, is 300 feet an average for other communities also from just a well or tank batteries or anything? What do other communities similarly do here?
They measure across the board, Councilman. Some are measuring from the well or the center of bore like we do. Some are measuring from tanks, or they have a separate setback requirement for tank batteries. Some jurisdictions are measuring from the edge of the lease or the pad site. So there's really no consistency that I'm seeing across the board on that.
In your professional opinion, safe either way? You looked at this more than I have. I mean, than all of us. You work on it every day. I guess what I'm asking you is, well, I'll tell you what, let me reframe that question. Let me ask this other question. If we put it on as a contingency that it will be talked about and readdressed, we could bring that off or change that 300 feet from tank batteries or whatever device is on the permanent structures on the pad? Or is it your recommendation?
You're asking whether you can change it if you adopt that requirement tonight? You can always change your ordinance.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
I had a question, Tim. On your drawing, you were showing storage tanks back there as potential equipment that could pose a health or safety issue. Who's going to determine, or how are you going to determine what it is back there that you can measure off of? I mean, if you put a welding machine back there, I don't think that's a problem, but if you put drums back there, that could, who's got control over that? Us or the drillers?
The plan I would have at this point, it would be staff or the oil and gas inspector through consultation with knowledgeable folks like our technical advisor. The real intent that was brought to us was for that permanent equipment, the tank batteries, the possibly the oil water separator, stuff that's going to be there, a welding tank and stuff. Probably not, because it's not really a permanent facility, but the determination would be done at the staff level.
Okay. I just didn't want to get into an argument out there about measurements and what it's measuring from, or from what. Okay.
But if you go with what you understood, or staff understood, you weren't the only staff person there, but you and staff understood, you had the consensus on when you left the meeting Thursday night, that would be this presentation that you have up there, where the setback would be measured in all directions like a spoke of a wheel from any permanent fixture.
That could pose a health or safety risk. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, and we may ask you again, but thank you very much. Okay, I have several cards here to fill out. I will remind everyone that we have a limit of 5 minutes to speak, and there is no time sharing, so you can't say, I'm going to delegate my time to someone else. It's just each person that speaks is delegated with is allowed 5 minutes to speak. We hadn't had that problem with that, but I just want to remind everyone. First, I'm going to allow Marilyn Rose. She is with Williams, and she is checked here. She does wish to speak and is in support of this ordinance.
Thank
you would
you.
give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Marilyn Rhodes, and I'm at 6776 Corporation Parkway in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm with Williams, and I wanted to congratulate you on your meeting. The citizens that came tonight is most refreshing. It's also most refreshing to be a part of a committee with citizens, industry, and with your staff that can sit down and have a fair information exchange. We realize that you're kind of new to gas drilling, and it's helpful for us to be able to speak with staff and with other citizens in Louisville and share information. What you have in your agenda packet is an ordinance that I think is fair. I would mention that industry didn't fight back when these things were proposed. We have given you some information, but we basically said, yeah, we can live with that. I would strongly suggest that you wait to put the other information in. Just listening to you, it's kind of the tanks are saltwater tanks. They're not storage of any kind of hazardous chemicals. So let's have some more time to talk, share some information, and then let's keep a good ordinance sound. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chris Hammock is with Titan Operating LLC, and you're only here. Oh, you don't wish to speak. I'm sorry. You're just here to answer any questions. Okay.
If I do, sir.
Sure. Come ahead.
I'll make it short.
That's all right.
Mayor, City Council, Chris Hammock, Titan Operating, 111 West 4th Street, Fort Worth, Texas. I again want to mimic the comments of the representative from Williams. The stakeholder group meeting has been a very pleasant surprise. I think your staff came up with a very unique approach to bring together industry staff and the neighbors and the community to discuss the issues that surround urban drilling. And it's been very successful and very fruitful. And in other areas that we've dealt with, it hasn't been. So I attest to your comments about Louisville Louisville. So it's been a great place to work, and I really appreciate the staff's ideas to put that together. And the group really has been a very open and fluid discussion group with good give and takes on both sides. With the item that we're discussing tonight, or the one that has been removed, there was some speak of some opposition. I was the one that spoke of opposition in the meeting. I do think that if we can get back together as a group and talk about this and discuss some more, that from the way things have been handled in the past, we can come to some conclusions that will work for you. As Tim stated and stated correctly, in Titan's opinion, I'm not arguing that there's an issue with tank setbacks of 300 feet. It's just the way that we measure things that I'd like to discuss a little further. So I'd like a little bit more chance to get back as a group and discuss it some more and see if we can get buy-in from all parties. So that's what I would request of you tonight. Thank you. And I'm available for any questions if you have them. Thank you.
All right, so thank you. L. Jean Ferguson.
Good evening. I'm L. Jean Ferguson, and I live at 1097 Holly Lane here in Louisville, and I've lived there over 20 years. I'm here in support of the ordinance amendments that have been talked about tonight, and I also want to give my support to the additional staff recommendations that are going to be made. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Brenda Latham.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Latham. My address is 1553 Parkside Trail, Louisville, Texas. I would first like to thank the council for allowing me to speak tonight, and I thoroughly applaud the effort that the stakeholder team or stakeholder group has done on this matter, and I just think that speaks volumes for the citizens of Louisville and how we are willing to work together. The proposed amendments to Chapter 7 is just one example, though, of how the actions of the city could help the Louisville Independent School District. You see, the actions taken tonight and the actions taken by the city regarding the setbacks of these wells does have a direct impact on the schools within LISD, many of which reside here in Louisville. And the school district doesn't have the opportunity to set such ordinances, which have a direct impact on the safety of our kids and our teachers. As a resident of Louisville, I fully support the amendments, but would hope that the setback would be more than 300 feet. I appreciate the council taking the necessary steps to keep Louisville a safe place to live and learn. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. R. Neil Ferguson.
I am Arneal Ferguson, 1097 Holly Lane, Louisville, Texas, and I've lived there for over 20 years. I'm also may have a reputation for talking long, but that was a one-time thing. I'll try to keep it brief. This evening you have in hand the results of our efforts that I have mentioned on a number of occasions, and I hope, first of all, it's gratifying to know the way this committee has been able to work, because we've taken it, the opportunity seriously to try to get something done and not simply evolve into the kind of rancor that we've seen in adjacent cities. You have before you tonight the first of the results of our work, the opportunity to adopt a set of amendments that would improve our code. I will tell you, as a side note, that with Brenda, I would like to have seen a greater setback. I would like to have seen a lot of things, but in order to try to negotiate and do it in good faith and arrive at something that drillers, citizens, and staff could all come hand in hand to council with, which is something I told you in previous meetings I would try to do. That's what it is. Doesn't mean that that's what I'd prefer, but that's what it is. I would also like to address the fact that there are some additional recommendations from staff. As Tim pointed out, we believed with the close of the first meeting and again with the close of the second meeting that we had a consensus on measuring to equipment, permanent equipment. So it came as a surprise that that was actually not the case. You've seen the staff recommendation. I would encourage you to read it and adopt it. I believe it's fair. I think it makes sense. Measuring to the wellhead ignores the fact that this is not the only place in which volatile chemicals and flammables are being stored and transferred on site. It's an archaic approach to measurement and makes no sense. I will point out to you, since the question was raised, and we did the study of 19 area communities without bias towards their results, that the average distance to tanks in this area is 440 feet. So if you ask if it was 300 feet, yes, plus another 140. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Carol Tomkovich.
Hi, I'm Carol Tomkovich, and I live at 2038 Broadcliff, and I've lived on Broadcliff for over 19 years. I would just like to express my support of the ordinance changes and also my support of the additional item that was pulled to be put back on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Steve Southwell.
I'm Steve Southwell, 995 Downey Drive, Louisville. I have a few pictures. I just want to say, first of all, thanks to city staff. I really do appreciate the opportunity to get together and sit down with these people across the table and kind of hash out some questions. What you're looking at tonight are some really common sense measures. Turn that on. Okay. Some really common sense measures to protect the citizens in the neighborhoods. Give everybody a little more confidence and assurance that things are going to go smoothly and safely here. Because this is mostly common sense, I only wanted to weigh in on two little things. I've got a couple of photos here. That one is just an illustration of our current setbacks. It's not to scale or anything, but as you can see, there's a setback of 100 feet between a tank and a residence, and that 100 feet does not take into account property line. So that 100 feet can burn up a lot of somebody else's property. The tanks have to be 25 feet from the edge of, actually I think they have to be 25 feet from the edge of the pad. I also have two photos I want to show you. This is cringeworthy. I apologize, but this was in the Wise County Messenger earlier this year. This was a tank fire out in Wise County near Decatur. This firefighter was trying to get some foam in the top there. Here's another shot of it. This is kind of a wider shot.
This is liquid gas.
See if I can get a little more on there. In this particular case, what happened was some welders were out working on this tank, and a spark set off an explosion. And this piece of twisted metal that is right over here, that piece of twisted metal, or one like it, the story read that the top of one of the tanks blew off and went 50 yards. Now, 50 yards is approximately 150 feet. So, as you can see, it doesn't quite work. So we really do need to get back and work on that setback from the tanks. And I'm going to admit this is definitely a worst case, and I'm not saying that's going to happen, but let's be safe. Secondly, with the emissions reduction plan, I think you'll recall over the past year there's been some serious concerns about emissions, and we've been working through that. Now, we've had the operators come in here and give some brief arguments before about the things they do to prevent the emissions and why they think it won't be a problem in Louisville. And Mayor Ukert, last time, I think you had asked them, why can't we make that law? Why can't we just mandate what they tell us that they're going to do? So in our meetings when we argued this out, the operators told us, basically there's multiple ways of getting to where we need to be, and maybe the city level doesn't need to have every technical requirement. So I think it's a great idea what staff came up with. Just make them give us a plan, tell us what they're going to do, and then we hold them to it. So I think that sort of plays into the whole mantra of trust but verify. We let them tell us what they're going to do, and then we follow up and make sure they do it. And that's basically all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jennifer Miller.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Miller. I live at 2018 Briarcliff Road, and I support agenda item number 13 and the city staff recommendations, especially about adding the language back for measuring from all permanent equipment, not just the wellhead. It can make a huge difference in a neighborhood, which is what we are talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Trey Arrowby. And I want to thank you very much for your pronunciation help there, sir.
I thought that might help. Thank you, Mayor.
That was very gracious. Thank you.
I don't have any prepared remarks. I just want to say, just as a result of tonight's meeting, this is my first time hearing from Tim Ippolito. I think did a wonderful job of characterizing my understanding of how the meetings were going as well, so I think did a great job. Thank you, Mr. Ippolito. To the council, I would just say, please, I'm very much in support of what is being proposed to you tonight and the staff recommendations. I've stood up here before. I asked for a moratorium. I think that would have been better. We have before you tonight could have been fleshed out more. Your concerns, Mr. Gorna, about why was that proposal or provision pulled out? Well, it's kind of time is ticking, and we need to go negotiate, get this before you. We need some betterment of our ordinances. A moratorium would have stopped that, but we're not there. This is a good first start. As in the staff report mentioned, the meetings are ongoing. The work continues. It needs to continue. What you have before you is a good start. I urge you to vote for it. Pass item 13 with staff recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Shelley Harvey.
Good evening. My name is Shelley Harvey, and I live at 2016 Briarcliff Road. And I would just like to reiterate what you've already heard from many of my fellow citizens and neighbors. I am in support of agenda item 13, especially following the city staff recommendations and adding back the 300-foot setback from all permanent equipment. I also ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Missy Elias.
Good evening. My name is Missy Elias, and I live at 2054 Briarcliff Road in Louisville. I'd like to first thank you for your service of our city. I appreciate your time and your efforts for serving as leaders of our community. As Louisville Councilman, I also believe that your utmost responsibility is to ensure the safety of our community and to maintain a balance of well-being with the residents of this city. I would like to be confident that I can trust each of you to make sure that my rights as a Louisville property owner are being protected to the fullest, and the environment that I live in here in Louisville, as far as the water I drink, the air that I breathe, and the Keep Louisville Beautiful slogan is upheld to the greatest standards possible. Many residents began looking at our gas drilling ordinances, and through comparison of neighboring communities, we found they were below average in most areas. This is unacceptable. When the Louisville City Manager called for a moratorium to review these ordinances, Councilman Watts, Gorina, and Durham voted against this, allowing the industry to swoop in and take advantage of these below-average setbacks and environmental controls. This was unacceptable. Because there was not a moratorium, we now have 28 permits under review and these permits came in under these below-average ordinances. The drilling industry thanks us for how we are going about bringing residents and these kind of things, but because we don't have a moratorium in effect, they can still put in permits. So, of course, they're thanking us, because they can still get in until we get these ordinances right and where the citizens need to be. Therefore, I'm a little bewildered and completely do not understand why the gas industry representatives should have a say on what they will or will not accept concerning our city ordinances. They do not live here. When I was approached about signing my mineral rights, the contract did not indicate where the drill sites would be, nor did they let me know how the Louisville ordinances would help affect me and my property if I signed. This contract only represented the financial gains and not the safety issues. Therefore, it is the City of Louisville who must maintain that the ordinances provide the utmost protection for the residents who live in the city. The City of Louisville should not allow gas industry representatives to dictate what our ordinances are based on if they adversely impact the ability to conduct drilling and production. The city should decide that the ordinances are based on the safety and the environmental effects of drilling to protect the citizens, and not the drillers deciding if the ordinances affect their ability to drill. The fire marshal indicates that this process of reviewing our city ordinances is continuing, and these changes tonight are internally recommended modifications. This leads me to believe, and we've also heard tonight, that there are more changes that need to be made. We should have a moratorium in place with all ordinances so that we can allow the maximum protection to our city. By continuing to allow permits without a moratorium in place, we are letting these drillers come in under setbacks that should not be there, that need to be greater. We are continuing, and I appreciate the fire marshals coming forth and the city manager also to review these. But if they're continuing to be reviewed, we should have a moratorium in place. I'm, of course, here in support of the ordinance amendments for the oil and gas drilling that Louisville presented tonight, and also the setback that was pulled off that needs to be in place. Let's make sure that any short-term financial gains do not have any long-term health or environmental setbacks for the city of Louisville. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ralph Prater.
I'm Ralph Prater, live at 1221 Babbling Brook here in Louisville. I commend all of the parties that are interested in reaching an agreement that will provide for the drilling of gas and oil. I can understand the position of the oil company or the gas company that cannot tolerate some of the positions if they go back to corporate lawyers and corporate management that understands the risk that the company would be exposed to. And some of the rhetoric that I hear, although I'm in favor of reviewing and getting agreement, I think the progress that's been made is commendable. But the rhetoric I hear is more in the tone of stop any drilling and stop any gas production. I'm in favor of reaching agreement and understanding the problems the production people face in meeting requirements and reaching these consensus, including all parties. Of particular concern is the statements like the 100% of every homeowner. That means that one individual can hold up the whole process, and that's not democracy. And I've been around gas and oil and high explosive materials, rocket motor production, and it can be handled safely. And I'm interested in reasonable approaches to reach a safe approach to the production of gas. But I'm concerned about this concern about tell us exactly what you're doing and how you're going to do it and how you're going to measure and so forth. people don't understand parts per billion and the vapors and how quickly they dissipate in a short distance. And our technology to measure these ingredients is phenomenal. Our progress over the years has just improved our ability to measure into such minute quantities that you can measure the presence of many of these chemicals in very tiny quantities that will dissipate in the air and be negligible a short distance away. And it's a complicated issue. I'm just urging caution and over-regulating and getting these statements of how they're going to do it and where they're going to do it and how they're going to do it will just open up more questions and more problems if you don't approach it properly and evaluate it technically as it should be evaluated. And the statement about perfect solution of no emission and no hazard and no nothing. Think of an automobile. How many points are there that can leak fluid, can blow out a tire, an electrical connection can go bad, but if you look at each individual atom, they're mitigated to the extent that we're satisfied as a customer, or we wouldn't buy an automobile. So let's look at it reasonably and consider all aspects. Technically, is it reasonable? Just some comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kyle Scott.
Kyle Scott, 2014 Briarcliff. Just briefly wanted to say that I support these amendments to the oil and gas ordinance, as well as the item that's been referred to many times here, the measurement to the permanent equipment from the protected use in the homes. And no disrespect to the gentleman who just spoke, I don't know if parts per billion registers in many of our minds, but I think fires and spills ought to register in our minds. So hence we have this, and I'm happy that there has been progress, and I'm also very happy to hear that that the work is ongoing. So I'm looking forward to more. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have several cards here of people who did not wish to speak, but they voiced either their support or opposition, so I'll read those at this time. Joy Moosey, she was in favor of in support of this agenda item with adding back in the staff recommendations. Kathy Stock, who is also in support of this item with adding back in the staff recommendation. Tamla Bowie, who is in support of this item, also with adding back in the recommendation. Leroy Vaughn, who is in support of this item. That's what we're doing. Cindy Clark, who is in support of this item. Jennifer Southwell, who is in support of this item with adding back in the recommendation. Conrad Odell, who is in support of this item. Tanya Wang, who is in support of this item. Carla Scott, who is in support of this item, and she's with the Louisville Neighbors of Responsible Urban Drilling and adding back in the language, staff's recommendation. And Virginia Marshall, who is also in support of this item. That is the cards that I had here, Council. So, Councilman Durham, I'll start with you, sir.
Mayor, 2 points. On the first one, the 100% of the property owners in agreement, what is it current from the staff? What is the current policy?
The current ordinance requires 100% of the property owners that are protected uses that are within 500 feet, I believe. Is that correct? Of the wellhead
Okay, so we're not, the 100% is exactly the same as we currently have.
What you have in this ordinance is exactly the same as it is today.
Okay. The other point I had was the, Mayor, I'd like to see us take this into two different pieces. One of what's been recommended tonight, and then if we wish, the additional part that was proposed but is not necessarily on the table right now.
Councilman
I agree with the consensus of the groups and what they want to do. I'd like to, I know the staff recommended to hold off that last part, but I do want more information on that last part about the 300 feet from any permanent structure. If it's just a storage tank for salt water, is that a, hazardous threat? I'm also a little concerned about measuring from a permanent structure to the edge of a property line when the house may be another 500 feet back from the edge of the property line. I mean, just today, just this last weekend, I'm on the highway and all this traffic coming from up north, and I'm right next to a gas tanker. And if I rolled down my window, I could probably touch its tires. Going at 30 miles an hour at the time on the highway because it was traffic jam. And I'm thinking, of all the hazards we face every day. I do understand what people's concerns are, and I also don't like to just throw things for lack of, caution or for overemphasis of caution. We do need to look at everything, and that's how I look at everything. Are we doing the right thing? Is it the best thing? Are we overanalyzing? Are we being Chicken Little type thing? And I'm all for fairness, but I do want to look at the distance of the 300 feet per permanent structure. If it's good enough to be from the wellhead, I think it should be good enough to be from other dangerous permanent structures. And I do want to clarify dangerous permanent structures because they'd have to know what they classify those as. Salt water, is that really dangerous? I don't think that's going to blow up. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager,
Well, Councilman Garina mentioned one thing that, and it's not unusual to be confused on this issue because I've been there myself, but the measurement point on the protected use, and maybe Eric can help me out on this, my understanding is that it is measured from a property line only in the case of a park. Otherwise, it's measured from the building itself. So just
thank you for
it's something
clarifying
that
that.
pops up every now and then, and has to be, we have to remind ourselves of that. But on that protected use, the measurement point is the building itself, unless it's a park, in which case it's the property line.
And I believe the reason when staff did that on the park was because the entire park area is very often inhabited with citizens, and so therefore they felt the whole entire park lot needed to be included because instead of just the restroom facility or the building itself, whereas the other is just the structures themselves.
And having said that, there are locations that do measure from the property line, regardless of whether it's park or other protected use, so it can go both ways.
When you say location, you mean there's other cities that do
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Yes. Also, Councilman Watts asked me to clarify one thing that comes up from time to time, and that is the history, I guess, on the previous moratorium. Council was asked to consider that by Councilman Tierney in Thornhill. That was not brought to the agenda by staff or management. We did impose at the management level a one-day or a couple-day over the weekend moratorium pending review of that particular item, but the staff never really imposed a moratorium beyond that or recommended a moratorium beyond that unless council was moving in that direction. So that was the subject of the previous discussion a couple months ago. So just clarify that came out of council, not staff.
Councilman Watts?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank all the folks that have been involved in the process. from the staff level, citizens level, industry level. What's in front of us tonight is the result of a good process of taking input from the citizens, staff and their experience, the industry that we're seeking to regulate, getting their take on. They don't, just to clarify, they don't have to approve of this ordinance at all. Nobody's saying that we're not going to do something if the gas companies say they don't like it. Seeking their input and seeking their approval are two very different things, and I think that we've done the wise thing by getting an understanding of how it's going to impact them, but taking in, trying to balance that with our desire to protect our citizens as well. I will say that as I said, these items that are in front of us are a result of that process. The ordinance, which is currently on the books, which was updated back in December, was also a result of a similar process, taking input from citizens, expertise of staff, and input from the industry. And it represented, at that time, just as this represents at this time, the best that we could do. It was the staff recommendation at that time. That ordinance wasn't perfect, and neither is this one. Because there's no such thing as a perfect ordinance. We can't write a law that's going to take into effect every possible scenario or situation involved with any subject matter, whether it's gas drilling or any other subject matter. And that's why I was comfortable with the ordinance that we had in place, staying in place until it was updated. Constantly, the analysis of comparing what the maximum setback in another city versus the maximum setback or minimum setbacks in this city, if you just take the numbers and just say, well, theirs is 400 and ours is 300, so theirs is automatically better, without taking into effect what uses the property around those drill sites are, nobody can control where the gas is. And in some cities, the proposed sites that the industry has said where they need to drill to get to the gas, in some cities it may be closer to commercial property than it is to residential property. It may be closer to industrial property than it is to residential, or it may be in open space like the one well that we have is out by the landfill. Those are all different scenarios that each city has to take into account when they're crafting the best ordinance that they can craft for their city. And so if say in Louisville that the proposed drill sites were closer to commercial and residential property wasn't an issue, well, we could have a very large minimum setback that would make everybody feel better at night, sleep better at night, and feel very comfortable, and still allow the drilling to take place, so that the people who have some financial gain from that, residents who stand to gain from that, could also maximize that as well. So just looking out on the surface at number of feet versus number of feet doesn't take into account all the different scenarios that each city has to take into account when they do what's best for them. Which is why I'm more interested in what's best for this city and not what other cities have on the books. Because I can guarantee you we can adopt these things tonight, and 6 months, a year from now, 2 or 3 cities may address or update their ordinance and up their minimum setbacks. And if you just go on who's got the largest number minimum setback, well, then we're going to be right back here to square one, saying these cities have more distance, so we need to improve ours. And then you're constantly going to have an ordinance under review if that's the guiding principle. I'm interested in what's best for our city, both for the folks that are in favor of gas drilling, those who have concerns about it, those who are there are some who are just outright opposed to it. I understand that. So I am in favor of adopting these proposed revisions. And also whatever revisions that we adopt tonight will not go into effect immediately, but I think through the publication process, probably require a couple of weeks maybe before they go in. I understand looking back to the meeting where a moratorium was initially proposed. We had an ordinance on the books the industry knew how to comply with. You had versus an unknown, which was what is the new ordinance going to be. So if I'm making a decision on whether or not to deal with an ordinance that I know how to comply with versus an unknown ordinance, I would probably file the permit as well and deal with the ordinance that I know how to deal with. That's not the case now. Now, at least on these items, we're not dealing with an unknown. So if these items, I will make this point, I mean, I'm in favor of adopting these that have been proposed, and I'm not assuming how anybody's going to vote up here, but if they are adopted, I would be in favor, and if we need a motion at the time, I'll make one, directing the city manager to take any administrative steps necessary to make sure that these are the requirements that are met, that nothing gets done between now and when these revisions go into effect. And if we need further direction on that, be happy to do, or a motion, I'll be happy to do so at the time.
Well, providing direction is fine, but actually making a motion, the charter gives him the authority to do it. So direction.
You don't need you just need direction.
Motion,
okay.
just direction.
That's it. I'm in favor of these proposed revisions.
Okay. Councilman Thornhill.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody that's come together on this. I know it's not easy to get in a room and have 4 different sides to a view. I really want to thank the citizens who took their time out of their busy schedules to meet, along with staff and the Texas Environment Commission and the drillers too, that everybody sat down at the table, and I think everybody walked out of the room. I'm not sure that we were in agreement with everything, but I do appreciate all your time. A couple of things on my mind with this, and I read it and put it down. I read it again, put it down. I kind of kept asking, where's the beef? Because I've been with this for a month, and I saw a paint job in a driveway, but I really wasn't seeing a lot of meat here. But then the more I thought about it, it's better than what we had. So I kind of got happy with it. I want to caution, I guess, going forward, that it took us a month to get to this far, that we continue the process so that when we come to an end, it won't be at a time period where there's no more permits to be issued. Then our work would be fruitless. So I would encourage you to continue the task of moving forward and building an ordinance that we can all be proud of. So I guess with that being said, I'd like to go ahead, I guess, at this point, and make a motion if that's all right.
Can I make some comment?
Pardon?
Before you do, can I make some comment?
Yes, you sure can. I'm sorry.
That's all right, David. It'd be fine for you to make the motion, then I can make them fast.
All right, go ahead, Mayor.
I want to echo the same sentiments. I think every person up here, the council people and our staff also included, I want to thank everybody, our citizens, first off, because you're not getting paid to do this, but it is your city, it is your home, and I want to thank you first off. But I also do want to thank the drillers and people who are working here. While they do get paid, it's their living, just like if you have a printing company here in town, you got to work with and abide within the regulations of the city, whatever we supply, or the restaurant that we just had come into town tonight. They have to work to abide within the city regulations, so on and so forth. I think, and also want to really commend staff on when we gave them direction to look at this ordinance, how they came up with the idea of putting together a joint committee that had all the sides on it to make sure everybody had a voice, all the citizens were being able to be heard, and yet at the same time put them all in the room together with the businesses that were going to be affected, so that we could work together. And I think that's probably what makes me continue to be proud of this city and be proud to be your mayor, is to see how well we can come together and work. And I think a lot of that comes from the staff that we have here at our community, how they do work very diligently, and they do care about their jobs. They care about each and every citizen here. And they take it very seriously, and that's sometimes if you're in business for yourself, you know that it's important to have those kind of people on hand, that they're looking out not for themselves, not for just a paycheck, but for their job and for what they represent. And I'm extremely proud of that. As you know, when this was first brought out, when Councilman Tierney and Councilman Thornhill did bring the moratorium issue out, I was in favor of it because of the fact, and I went on record as it was, because of the fact bless you, I think I knew there was some things from everything I'd been seeing, from talking from other mayors, other people of other cities, so on and so forth, how there are some things. And even the drillers that were here that night and the companies that were here that night said that they were doing some things voluntarily that weren't in our ordinances, so those things needed to be looked at. So I was kind of in favor of putting that on a moratorium until we could get all that down in writing, so we could get everybody to agree. And it's exactly what I wanted to happen, was us to come together, come with some ordinances, and make that happen. But I hear Councilman Watts tonight basically offering up that he would be in favor of staff, of recommending to staff, give direction to staff that they would basically do a moratorium on these items if they were to pass tonight, a moratorium on permits until these come effectively. City Manager said October 18th would be the earliest they could be effective if they're passed.
That's our rough calculation right now, subject to...
And that's because of a 10-day rule. Once you do pass it, and it's all statute that has to be adhered to. But once again, I do want to thank everybody. I think that this will not end here. We are dependent on natural resources, and I think everyone here would like for us to be just as dependent on our own natural resources, or even more so than we would foreign resources. So we all want to be able to accomplish that goal, but we also want to make sure we do it in a safe manner, and I commend all of you for working with that. So with that said, Councilman Thornhill, I'll let you go ahead and make your...
Okay, how do we want to do this? Do I want to go ahead and make a motion to approve the item 13, and then and if that passes, then let Watts come in with his motion, or?
Well, all he was going to do, I think, he wasn't going to do a motion, if I'm mistaken. He was just going to move or suggest that we give direction to the city manager to put a moratorium for permits being issued until these...
I don't want to limit it to just him. I want it to be broad enough that he can take whatever steps he needs to take.
Okay. That the city manager could take the steps he would need to take, which he's allowed to do by the city charter, to do what he needs to until these laws go into effect.
So no motion necessary.
Correct.
What I hear.
Correct. The two things that are here, though, I think, are, and from bring it back up, what Councilman Durham said, because it was quite a while ago, so I want to bring that back up for you. Councilman Durham was wanting to do, address it in two separate ways. If I get this wrong, please correct me. But one, with the items that the staff had in there, the 5 items, would be one item that we could look at, and then the second one would be amending that to that added verbiage that's in there. My question to council is, can you do that in that form?
Yes, you can take it in 2 separate motions. Do the ordinance as it's presented to you, and then
Amend it.
Or no, if you want to do it.
Amend it.
A motion to add an additional requirement on how setbacks are
So I can use this
measured.
for the additional.
Is that right, Councilman Durham?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. I do have a question before I get started here.
That's all right.
How did we come up with the 300 feet? Was that a compromise, or was that staff's recommendation, or did we kind of whittle our way to 300 feet?
Eric, you want to address that?
We looked at the surrounding cities as to just took a look at their bottom line or their minimum setback measurement. There was quite a few of them in the 300 range, so we agreed by consensus to raise that from 200 to 300.
Okay, so we're kind of setting our standards back again at a minimum of the surrounding cities? Is that what I'm hearing you say? The 300 feet is a minimum?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, with that said, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve item 13 as presented.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Thornhill to approve as presented. Item 13, approve as presented, and a second by Councilman Watt. Is there any further discussion?
And Mayor, one clarification. Just one clarification in response to David's question. The 300 feet is a minimum from a protected use.
From a Texas what?
From a protected use.
Oh, protected.
I think his question was, and we've got a motion in a second, so don't let me forget about that. So we've got a motion, but I think his question was, how did we come up with the 300 feet from a protected use? And then when he heard staff's response, he was saying, so we kind of took what is the minimum of the surrounding cities, not what is the average or some of the other. In other words, 300 foot is kind of the minimum of what surrounding cities are
The trend
using.
is going to 300 feet, and we just use the trend.
Isn't that what you were asking?
Yeah, that was my question. I didn't know if 400 feet would be the right amount or 300 feet was the right
There's
amount.
some that have larger.
Okay. I'll go with the recommendation then. We got a motion and a second.
This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Louisville, Texas, amending Chapter 7, Article 18, Oil and Gas Drilling and Production of the Louisville City Code by increasing the minimum setbacks, changing paint color requirements of equipment, requiring an emission control reduction plan, requiring a processed water disposal plan, requiring a commercial driveway onto a gas site, providing a savings clause, providing for a repealer, providing for severability, providing a penalty, providing an effective date, and declaring an emergency.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Councilman Thornhill?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make another motion. We move to adopt the additional amendment modifying how the setbacks are measured, specifically amending Section 7-607A2 and D4 to provide that the measurement shall be made from the closest edge or plane of a permanent equipment that could pose health and safety risk in a straight line without regard to intervening structures or objects, to the closest exterior point of the protected use or nearest park property line. Also amending Section 7-607D to provide that unless otherwise specifically stated, setback distances shall be calculated as I just stated. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Thornhill, a second by Councilman Guarina. Any comments? I've got one. I know we're looking at here, well, and I heard the businesses, some concerns and stuff, and there probably are some things that we need to look at. My viewpoint was I would like to go ahead and pass this and get that in there. If we need to modify this, as it was brought up by Councilman Watts earlier, it's going to get modified several times down the road. If we need to modify it, staff can come in and say, because it's my understanding this committee is going to still be looking at other items in the ordinance. So if they get together and they talk more, Thursday night there was a consensus to do it. Friday morning it kind of changed. So from one side. So I'd like to kind of go ahead and get it in there myself just so that we can go and have that. If we need to adjust it at a later time because of saltwater tanks or some other things, we can go in there and make that amendment at that time. So anyway, we have a motion, a second. Is there anything to read on this? There's not, is there? Okay. Any other discussion?
Do we, I'm sorry, do we, with the previous discussion about our direction towards the city manager once these are adopted, do we lose anything by letting the folks get back together again between now and the next meeting, if we continue it to the next meeting? I mean,
Instead of that direction?
No. With that direction in place.
I'm not sure when the next meeting is actually scheduled for. We try to give plenty of notice and time for people to attend. Did you set another meeting date?
No, the meeting date has not been set. Frankly, at the last meeting, we were talking somewhere 30 days, but we could try to get the group together sooner than that.
It might be tricky to get things put together that quickly for October 18th.
And to that, and I think I hear where you're going, but my thought on that would be also that maybe they have their meeting, but they still don't come to an agreement for a while. So then you could go past that point that you're talking about, the 18th.
Okay.
Okay, Counselor?
This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Louisville, Texas, amending Chapter 7, Article 18, Oil and Gas Drilling and Production of the Louisville City Code by modifying how a setback is measured, providing a savings clause, providing for a repealer, providing for severability, providing a penalty, providing an effective date, and declaring an emergency.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. See, we're not such bad people. We're just like you. Thank all of you for coming very much. We appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Mayor, do you need anything on the direction?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and give that direction to staff?
Just direction for the staff, for the city manager to take appropriate measures, administrative measures that you deem necessary to make sure that these revisions that are adopted tonight are the only thing that can be complied with.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that also.
Yeah.
Same here.
Second,
Okay.
third, whatever, fourth.
No, it's not a motion, just staff recommendation. All right. Item 14 is a tabled item, consideration of an ordinance authorizing entering into a franchise agreement with Denton County Electric Cooperative, Inc., CoServe Electric granting non-exclusive right to use or occupy right-of-way within the city of Louisville for construction and operation of electric transmission and distribution line. Y'all might want to listen to this. This is just as important what we went over. But I will say that staff has recommended that we table this item also. Councilman Watts?
Move to table this to the October 18th meeting.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Watts, a second by Councilman Grenna. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Down to reports. Nika. Bob. Chief. Linda. Chief. No, sir. Thanks for your help tonight, sir. It's looking good out there, isn't it, Carol? Very good. Boy, it's nice weather. I heard you were in charge of that. Thank you, ma'am. You did good work. Donna? Brenda? Mr. Ferris, thank you and your department. Excellent work on this. We appreciate it. I know it's taken a lot of time and effort for you and Tim. Thank you both very much. I appreciate that, and your staff, too. Mr. Backus, sir? Councilman Durham?
Mayor, the Western Days Festival was a very good event, well attended, but the next morning, if not all, everything was gone, almost everything was gone by the next morning. I was impressed by that. I want to thank the staff, the promoter, all the other people, the volunteers that were involved. It's a very good job.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Grenna?
I saw a skinny lady eat 56 tamales. Wow. I was impressed. That was something else. I do want to say it was a good event. Though it kind of drizzled Friday night and the first part of Saturday, we still had a lot of people come out and enjoy it. It was a good event, and maybe next year it'll be even better. But I mean, it was awesome. I didn't see anything wrong with the event. It was really good. And if you missed it, I wish you made it because you would have had a good time. The other thing is this Saturday at the Central Fire Station on the 9th, that is this Saturday, is the open house for the fire department. bring your family, kids. Care Flight's going to come out that day. We're going to have the Louisville Citizens Police Academy doing child IDs, and we're going to do a lot of different things that day. So bring your whole family out, have a good time. And Chief Lasky, what are the hours again for Saturday?
From 10 to 3. I think we had a notice up right at the beginning of the meeting on both boards, too.
Okay, just wanted to let them know for the video. Thank you.
Councilman Watts?
Just kind of a ditto to what's been said already about Western Day. Good event, and my knowledge went off without any incidents, whether weather-related or otherwise. Thanks for the folks who come out and braved the light rain and the unpredictable arm of myself tossing candy from the parade. But good event. Thanks to everybody who was involved. And also, I probably should have said while they were in here, but just a word about Communities and Schools in North Texas. If you're not familiar with that organization, they do great work. I recently joined the board of that organization, and I'm hopeful there'll be a day when they're not necessary, but as long as they are, please support them. They do very, very good things in our community. So thank them for showing up tonight as well.
Mr. King?
No, sir.
Mr. Thornhill?
Yeah, it was a great Western Day parade and an event, and I appreciate everybody's help. I know I was on the phone with Jennifer half a dozen times saying, Jennifer, it's raining, what are we going to do? And she said, well, we're going to go in the parade. It's rain or shine. And sure enough, when they started, the rain quit. So it was great, and I want to thank everybody. I know it's hard work and a lot of preparation and planning, so thank you very much.
Counselor? Good. Officer, thank you again for being with us tonight. Appreciate that, sir. And I'll ditto Western Days was just incredible. Staff does so much work planning on this. We're already planning for next year, and our promoter, Jerry Thompson, did an excellent job, and it was just one of our citizens pitched in. We had so many volunteers that helped. I was so proud to have the citizens get out and get involved in the community and volunteer. It was great, and most of all, God blessed us with wonderful weather. I mean, it rained all day. They said, my wife was up in Denton all day Friday. She said it didn't stop raining. It never rained down here Friday. It sprinkled just a little, and that was it. Saturday, like David said, noon, when the parade started, the rain quit. It was there the rest of the day, so it was beautiful. So we thank the Lord for that. So in accordance with that, Section 551.072, property acquisition. Section 551.074, City Secretary Julie Heinze. And Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. We can now convene into executive session. Okay, we are convened back into regular session. Is there any action to be taken, council?
Move to approve the severance pay contract for City Secretary Julie Heinze.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Watts, a second by Councilman Guerrero. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion adjourned by Councilman Thornhill, second by Councilman Watts. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.